In the early years of the Second Age, the great elven smiths forged rings of power, 9 for mortal men.
Aragorn may be the king of men, but Anthony Daniels is now the undisputed king of spoilers. This is Lord of the Rings 1978 animated spoilers.
This is spoiler.
Ugh, Anthony Daniels.
Ugh.
The king we deserve.
No, it's not.
It's such a weird king. It's like we're the Ewoks bowing down to C-3PO.
Yeah.
I'm Josh. I'm your host. I'm recording out of Goshen, Indiana tonight. Thank you for joining us on Spoilers! Podcast. This pod is going to go in several different feeds because we have a Lord of the Rings specific feed, but then we have our main feed, which you're probably listening to. Let's go around the horn and let's go east to west. Who you are, where you're recording from, and maybe just what surprised you most watching this version of the movie. Eastus would be Brett.
Okay. This is Brett, recording out of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I think it was surprising that 80% was like the first book. 18% was pretty much the last 20% was the second book. I mean, and then it just ends. I don't. Like, was there supposed to be a sequel?
There was. But let's save that for the pod. Let's keep moving to the east.
I'll go next. My name is Mikey, recording from Goshen, Indiana. And I was surprised with how much rotoscoping was in this movie. It's pretty heavily rotoscoped. Not a whole lot of hand-drawn animation, but just a lot of drawing over like stuff that they filmed. It's easier and it looks cool, but it's definitely cheaper. So I was impressed.
I'm going to need to ask all you guys what was going on because I don't understand.
We got some Roger Rabbit levels of mixed media happening here. Let's keep moving to the east. I think Stevie's up next.
This is Stevie recording from Elkhart. And Josh, I am so thrilled you picked this movie. This movie is confusing. It's chaos. It's erotic. And, like, honestly, I think I texted you this. This movie brought an audible gasp out of me that I have never had happen in spoilers history. So thank you for picking this movie.
I love that as a teaser, too, because you didn't tell me what moment that was, so let's not tell the audience.
We all know.
Let's get to that. Let's simmer to that.
Let's bring it to a low heat.
Pappy?
Yeah, this is Pappy. What's not keeping it to a low heat, Josh, is that Lord of the Rings feed just had its biggest week of plays since we launched it, which is pretty exciting. It's like 3 months after we launched it. But
Awesome.
What surprised me about this movie is I thought I had seen the whole thing, but then I remembered once I started watching it, I actually watched it while having a psychedelic experience with and it got to the prancing pony scene. It was too much for both of us, so we had to turn it off and go swim in the pool. I remember being traumatized by that.
Cool down swim.
Sounds real smart.
7 for the dwarf lords, 3 for the tall elf kings. But then the Dark Lord learned the craft of ring making and made the Master Ring. The one ring to rule them all.
This is Corey, recording out of Simi Valley, California. I'm the Westist. I'm out here in the Shire. The thing that surprised me the most, I would probably be like the animation next to like the more realistic depictions, which I think were also animated to a degree, but less so. Namely, like when you see a character like Aragorn, who seems almost fully animated next to the orcs. So that clash was the thing that surprised me the most. I knew this was going to be an animated movie, but I wasn't expecting any of that.
Cool. So that's everyone on the pod. Thanks for the introductions. We all know the story of Lord of the Rings, and so I don't want to go through plot point by plot point, but we do need to kind of travel with them a bit, and we can talk about the animation and the weird crap that happens along the way. Stevie, we see basically silhouettes on bold screens, and they start telling the history of the ring.
With the One Ring, Middle-earth's his, and he cannot be overcome. As the last alliance of men and elves fell beneath his power, he did not notice the heroic shadow who slipped in.
Yeah, so when I was expecting, I've never seen this movie before, and you said Lord of the Rings animated. I love Lord of the Rings. I love animation. How could this movie go wrong? By not starting with animation. I let out an oh my god when it's just red light and black silhouettes, and they're retelling the story of how the ring came to be. And then, like, it honestly looks like a bad stage play you'd see, like, in a small town, but they're trying to do big, heavy time Broadway, and it just is not working. Yeah, that's my first impression of this movie is where's the animation? And then when we get to the animation, it's bad. Because, I mean, like, they show, like, Smeagol and I forget the friend that he murders. Like,
Deagle.
What is it? Deagle?
Deagle.
Yeah.
Desert Eagle.
Man, that J.R.R. Tolkien, man, he's crafting Smeagol and Deagle.
Deagle .50.
That's a copy right there, Smeagol and Deagle. But, yeah, this movie threw me for a loop instantly, and I was hooked. So, yeah, that's me.
I think we've done 6 episodes on just the first movie by Peter Jackson, so I guess we're all Lord of the Rings buffs. This intro part, was there anything that piqued your guys' interest about the plot and maybe what was different than you know about Lord of the Rings? Or did this seem like pretty much straightforward? I think that's where we're going to get a lot of our discussion tonight, is where this kind of subverted our expectations and changed the story around a little bit.
Well, we got to see Smeagol actually kill Deagle in this, right? We don't get to see that in the Lord of the Rings movies, right?
And I'm going to keep it. Oh, are you indeed, my love?
Yeah, we do. He chokes him in the third movie.
Yeah.
Oh, we gotta wait that far.
I thought it was pretty
know.
straightforward, Josh. Was there any differences?
Well, they didn't go through the whole history of mankind itself necessarily.
Thank God.
I don't know. I guess I went with you, Stevie. I was really transfixed on, like, what is this silhouetting they're doing? And just, like, music. Go ahead.
It's shadow theater.
Well, like, I think Corey had a good point. Like, I honestly think if, like, someone could pull off, like, a whole YouTube video of, like, Fellowship in this style, I would actually be pretty captivated by it. But, like, it's the inconsistency, right? It's like this, then jumping to rotoscoping, then jumping to animation, to, like, live-action hybrid. Like, I didn't think it looked that bad, per se. It's just a little disorienting. Brett disagrees.
Yeah. Nah, go ahead.
Well, it's even... Pappy, before we even get to the animation, there's this, like, still picture that they just zoom into for, like, 20 seconds. So some of the, quote, animation is just a single drawing that they, like, push into to establish a setting, which I think is a whole nother style in and of itself they just toss around.
Yeah, and some of the paintings, when they do that, like, are quite nice looking by themselves, but it does feel strange in that I notice it. And I know they use that technique in other animated movies, especially older ones, but I don't think I notice it as much because they put in little bits of motion here and there.
Somebody said at the beginning it was like a mixed media project, and that's exactly what it is. It does a lot of different stuff. And it's like very experimental, I think, for... Well, maybe not for its time. The 70s, everybody was like tripping. This is like a giant acid trip, I guess, but
it is.
Do not recommend. Do not recommend.
Yeah, I wonder if that's kind of why it's in this style, because it is such psychedelic art and stuff. So it kind of makes you wonder why they chose to go that route. And none of the like animation from scene to scene is like consistent, like Pap said. It's all different techniques and stuff. It's very interesting.
I don't know if there's much discussion here, Josh, but one thing that I did notice was different is that this made it very clear the amount of time that passed after Bilbo gave Frodo the ring. And I think it's like using that same painting shot, just like jumps over like a bunch of seasons. But
well, like,
I think we talked
the
about
SpongeBob guy shows up and he's like 17 years later.
17 years later.
Yeah, this movie is very explicit about 17 years, and that was like a big running joke that we had last time we covered this movie. I also enjoyed not only that coverage of time, but the aging of characters in this seems more realistic to the books. I feel like, Brett, that's a good thing to toss your way. Like, Aragorn is like 80, right?
Yeah, he's definitely older. I was kind of wondering what Native American tribe he was actually part of.
Redcorn tribe.
Okay. Yeah, I thought they didn't really age Bilbo probably like he would have been when they saw him the first time. I thought that was kind of a mistake. And then maybe it's just because it was maybe geared towards kids. They didn't really think the kids would understand how he would age so much. But like we know, it's because he was freaking old, and then he takes the ring off, and he doesn't have the ring anymore, and then he just ages rapidly. But yeah, I think they portrayed Aragorn pretty well. Like he's older, he's more seasoned, and and Gimli is like the tallest dwarf ever.
So yeah, sometimes.
I mean,
yeah, it's just weird.
I think we can all agree, though. Having a brown person in the main cast of Lord of the Rings totally ruined it. Great call by Peter Jackson to not make the same mistake.
Look, Aragorn, the way he looks, like he does look like a Native American, and all that's fine, and I think he plays it well. The problem with Aragorn is that he fucking cruises around in bare legs.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
Same with Boromir.
Didn't Boromir do that also?
Yes, but
Shorts.
he is gone as soon as he arrives in this movie. This is a breakneck pace.
Yeah, I mean, so breakneck, we literally see a time lapse of seasons pass, and Gandalf comes back a little bit wary for the road because he's been finding out everything about the ring. And I would like to just stop on this plot point for a second because I actually thought the wizard battle was pretty cool to watch. Now, this was the longest animation feature film of its time. Like, nothing really came close to this besides Fantasia, but I was getting some Fantasia vibes here. I was getting some just like classic 70s wizard vibes. It was cool.
Have you seen any of the Ralph Bakshi movies, Josh?
Like what? Wizards?
Fritz the
Heavy
Cat.
Metal, Fritz the Cat. Yeah. I don't know. I saw Heavy Metal in college under a similar state to which I watched this the first time. And like, yeah, it's just...
How much
it's a
acid
very,
did
like,
you drop in college?
I saw Bilbo use it once before he went away.
It's a very psychedelic...
Enough, Corey.
Play the fifth
Enough.
on that. But yeah, it's a very psychedelic, I don't know, style. And like, it kind of reminded me too of like, you know how there was that rumored project of like Stanley Kubrick doing Lord of the Rings with the Beatles? Like this wizard battle is kind of like what I pictured that movie being like.
My favorite part is Saruman, who is sometimes called Aruman.
Aruman.
Yeah,
right.
so many times.
But my favorite part is when he says, Saruman of many colors!
So I guess in the initial script, in the initial dubbing, they just called Saruman Aruman because, like we said when we covered Lord of the Rings last time, Sauron versus
Getting
Saruman
confused.
is just really confusing. I think it was Mikey who said, is Saruman like the son of Sauron?
Definitely Mikey.
So we changed it to Aruman, and then I think there's like a fan backlash, and so they changed it, but weren't able to change all the instances, so you're left with this mishmash of I don't know, but it kind of makes sense because the wizards have like different names depending on like who's referring to them, which I've always thought was kind of a cool thing.
Not confusing at all.
What talk is this? What are you saying, Saruman?
Mithrandir.
Josh, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
As someone who has seen both Fellowship and this movie, which one do you prefer from Aruman? Actually, like, beating the shit out of Gandalf, or just, like, opening his robe and arms and, like, shooting off a giant light to trap him in time?
Well, the negatives about this version is that we didn't get any sneaker squeaks. I was listening for them. But I think I like the mystical way they're fighting a little bit more. It was almost like they're fighting on a ground floor and he, like, unbeknownst to Gandalf, teleported him to the top. It was just kind of a cool mind twist. Both the wizard battles in both the movies were pretty well done. I don't know, moving right along here, there's a really similar shot of the roots we get a really similar shot of the hobbits hiding in the roots as to Peter Jackson's film. The ring wraiths are chasing down the road, and Frodo's like, "Get off of the road!" But that just brings me to like kind of a discussion question. Like, it seems like Peter Jackson was pretty aware of this film and took some of the strongest parts.
I think
it.
so.
He directly lifted from it. He said so.
The obvious one is the scene from Hunt for the Wilder People where they're hiding under the tree. I mean, that's exactly what Peter Jackson did. So I thought that was really cool.
So he's a fraud. We're calling him out right now. He's a fraud.
Fraud Jackson.
I think it's a smart move.
Yeah. Brett said it. Brett said it.
Yeah, but Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings is a billion times better than this. So
Yes.
So I think he gets a free pass.
Josh, have you read these books?
Yeah.
What do you make of the horny ring wraith that was having a very odd,
Oh my gosh.
audible release while being above the hobbits and looking for the ring?
Stevie, as host, I would like to toss it to you to really color in that scene for the audience.
Okay, so when you first look at these ring wraiths, you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. You know, kind of these bland, kind of socialism, communist robes. You know, and you have red eyes as well. And then this ring wraith gets off the horse, and you're like, he's going to draw a sword. He's going to be like 7 feet tall. Instead, he's walking like he has spina bifida, and it's very strange. He's doing kind of like... I can't even explain how he walks. It's like his knees are hitting together. He's crouching down, and he releases an audible noise that has not left my brain in a matter of 48 hours when he's near the ring, at least. I can't even describe it.
It's a fair point, though, because these writers are supposed to be like old, decrepit men. I kind of liked seeing it.
Old decrepit men don't make that noise, Josh.
Not without pills.
That sounds like an old, decrepit man's orgasm. That's exactly what it sounds like.
That's what that sounds like?
They don't.
Pappy,
I don't want to live
It's
to
gonna
be
happen to
old.
all of us.
Well, how does it sound like, Brett?
Yeah, come on. You're the Pappy. You know what Pappies are like.
I don't know. It's,
Brittany said she thought it looked like the hobbits were pooping. Well, if you go back and watch it, which I'm sure nobody ever will, but they're like look like they're pinching a loaf.
Just Sam.
Just Sam.
well,
Very
yeah.
scared.
If we're talking about character design, we have to stop at Sam. Like, you guys.
What do you mean? He's a very handsome boy. There's nothing wrong with Sam at all.
He looks 95.
Very special boy. Even his mannerisms, you guys, are just like, what am I supposed to think about Sam right now?
What do you think about him, Pap?
I mean, he honestly doesn't look like he has all of his, facilities with him. He doesn't seem like he's all the way there. And is very affectionate towards Frodo, which is a very strange dynamic.
Very affectionate.
I don't know.
I mean, that's something that's been talked about since the original movies, but do you think it's stronger in this one?
Oh, yeah.
I did. Only time I thought that is when they were obviously going to make out. At the fire?
Aragorn's telling that story.
And they were going to make out and they get stopped.
I don't think you can see where Sam's hand is, actually, if you look close.
Oh, we know.
Josh, you were very, very anti those kind of jokes when we did the original or the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Have you softened your stance? Does this make you see that there might be some subtext there potentially?
I think, 2000s Sean Astin Sam, cisgender, straight dude. 1978, I think 70s Sam is gay.
And
I don't know if Frodo is or not, but Sam.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
I didn't say there was anything wrong with it. I was
doing a Seinfeld.
I know. Yeah. I just think that Sam. It's really hard to know what to take from him. Did you guys find him comedic in this at all?
In what kind of way?
I thought he was funnier than. I mean, he's the second funniest character, I guess.
He's funny looking.
Who's the first funniest, Brett?
Gollum cracked me up, everything he did. He was like a crackhead who was looking for like a chocolate bar. Like he was...
I got these cheeseburgers, man.
Yeah, that's
Let me
exactly
get
what I
that
was
ring.
thinking of, man. I didn't know if anyone would get that reference, but got these cheeseburgers. It's exactly how he's moving. Like you can't tell me that he wasn't drawn a little bit from someone who's fiending, you know?
He literally
He
is
in a way.
fiending. Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, it's the ultimate drug he's trying to get. But yeah, I'm glad that you know that reference. That's awesome.
It was quite alarming though to jump because I'd never seen this movie before. So to jump from Sean Astin Sam to this Sam was really something. Like this Sam walks with a limp, and his mannerisms consist of an 85-year-old grandmother who's worried about her grandson.
Yeah, it was weird.
What would it have been like to see to fruition this version of Sam being like, I can't carry the ring, but I can carry you, Mr. Frodo? You know, would that have been any, like Stevie, would have been potentially more gratifying to see this kind of, this version of Sam overcome all of his obstacles in life and do that?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I imagine what's this guy's name again? Ralph Bakshi, is that his name?
Yeah.
Sorry. I imagine if they had shot it like that, it would have been in slow motion for some odd reason, because there's a lot of slow-mo in this movie for some strange reason. And it just would have looked so strange because there's no in-between animation. Like, head sizes, body sizes would have gone in and out nonstop while he's running up that hill, so... Yeah, no.
So anyway, we were talking about the ring wraiths giving the hobbits a blumpkin or whatever at the tree. They go through Bree. They kind of play out the dance that you see in the extended scene a little more. Frodo gets on a table as Mr. Underhill. Peter Jackson, to his credit, figured out how to frame a lot of this stuff a lot better. It's just a little underwhelming after seeing the movie. He just kind of falls under a table and slips it on. And does anyone know why, like, everyone in the inn gets all pissed off at this magic trick?
I don't know, messing with their buzz. I don't know.
You think you're better than me? I want invisible and such.
Maybe they were all checking their wallets.
Their coin purse.
Yeah.
This is like the most egregious point in the whole movie, though, for me. Like the contrast between styles, because like
Ooh.
I don't know how you would explain it. It's real human faces. I didn't do the research on like how this was done at all, but it looks like it's real human faces like transposed over some weird sketch.
Lighting.
Does anybody?
I was going to ask you guys. I was going to ask you guys how any of this stuff was done.
Stevie
like
knows.
Whatever you said earlier, Mikey, the Rotacon or whatever.
Rotoscoping.
Yeah, and then
it's just where
you
just
color in.
Film. Yeah, you just film how you would lay out the scene or whatever, and then animators just draw over the humans, and it's just animated that way, frame by frame. So it's just a faster and quicker and much cheaper way to do it.
That's why the animation looked so strange.
It's like tracing.
For the Bree scene, the Prancing Pony, are they doing the same thing, but they're not coloring over?
No, what they're doing with that is while they're processing the film, they're adding light and grain to like the actual film itself. And so when they actually process it, it has that light, grainy texture to it. And that's why it looks like actual faces that are grainy, which they are, versus like rotoscoped animation, which like what Mikey said is them literally filming this like an actual live action movie with costume and actors and everything and tracing over the actor's body and clothes.
So weird.
Yeah, it's a really odd choice to do.
But you said it's a lot cheaper?
Rotoscoping, yeah, it's far more cheaper, and you can get away with it
way
being
faster.
Not as good artist because you don't need in between. You don't need in between.
Yeah, you're just tracing.
Yeah, you're just tracing.
It's such a mistake for this movie too, because like to digest a work of high fantasy like this, especially back in the 70s when you didn't have Game of Thrones and it wasn't as common this kind of media, you really have to like get into it. You have to be in the moment. You have to be taken away by the story, by the animation style, by whatever you're going with. You have to stick to it. And like when you're constantly pulled out of it, and like even wondering, even if you ask the question like how did they do that, you're not in Middle Earth anymore, and the film's going to start to fall apart.
I agree with that. And I think that for the orcs and the ringwraiths, some of this rotoscoping technique works because they are otherly world beings. They're not supposed to look human and real or partially phased out of reality or something. But you're right. That Bree, where it's just other regular folk also looking like ghosts.
Or when you get Aragorn standing next to other like Rohan knights or whatever, you know, like those guys are also like the realistic looking type. So I even took a screenshot of like Aragorn standing next to one of them. It's so different, and I agree with Pappy on that.
Me too.
I'm watching it right now where the ringwraiths beat the shit out of all the beds and they're pissed and it's like all rotoscoped. I mean, I think it looks great, but there's something about the way that like all of the faces are drawn on like all of the characters that whose faces you can see. It's like they look terrible. I don't know, design wise, like I don't know, they're all pretty ugly, horrible men in this movie, but
Legolas is
I kind of like the way
beautiful.
this movie looks, though. I like the way that this movie looks for some reason. It's like, I don't know, psychedelic. It looks like a Led Zeppelin music video to me, honestly. It's crazy looking.
Frank
this
Bakshi
movie.
originally wanted Led Zeppelin to do the music.
Oh my god, that would be insane. That would have been a crazy
That would have
movie.
upped this movie quite a bit.
Yeah, they didn't let people use their music in movies for a long time.
I wish Led Zeppelin after that would have made like a Dark Side of the Moon, Wizard of Oz sort of album that's supposed to be played with this. That'd be so cool. I feel like we keep coming back to the ringwraiths a lot, and I think despite what Stevie says about them walking weird and stuff,
Very
like,
geriatrically.
they're old. They're hundreds of years old.
I don't care.
Yeah,
you,
but
you don't
they,
walk
like,
like
are
that.
magic.
You don't walk like that.
I think it's just really clear Peter Jackson used the design for them from this movie quite a bit. The scene with the beds is very similar, and I think, dare I say, what is it called, Brett? Mountaintop or pillow top?
Weathertop?
Weathertop.
yeah.
Pillow top.
Pillow top mattresses.
up at Mushroom Top.
Off the top.
I really
Hey,
liked that scene where he goes into the spirit world. Corey, can you kind of fill that in?
So they're sitting around a fire, and Chavez is making some peyote, and they all start taking it.
My god.
And Dirty Steve is like, "You guys see the size of that chicken? It's fucking classic."
Oh my god.
Oh, okay, I gotta.
How about in this
answer.
movie? I'm gonna edit in the sound of the ringwraith orgasming over Corey saying that like whole thing. But can you fill us in on what happens in this movie?
So you mean when the ring wraiths show up and Aragorn's trying to like fight them off with the fire?
Yeah, can you describe what it's like when Frodo puts on the ring and the spatial elements that kind of happen?
From then up
Mars,
to
man.
Rivendell it's kind of hard to describe, but like you said, there's a lot of flashing colors, and it is very. My notes say it's like an LSD trip. I know not to go back to that joke too often, but I don't know. Things are very like confusing. The backgrounds aren't solid. There's a lot of there's a lot of colors. I don't know. Maybe someone can pick it up from there. I don't got a whole lot.
The sky is awesome. Like in a lot of this movie, he doesn't commit to having any kind of like realistic sky, like particularly here. Like I think this is like a lot of like dark green and like broad brush strokes and stuff. Like it's just like it's like a, I don't know, abstract painting for the sky. I remember that.
Yeah, I remember a lot of like bright red.
And there's definitely mixed media here because the ringwraiths in this other world are definitely just, it's guys being filmed. It's like, and it's filtered through in this animation. I don't know. It's like very mixed media. Like it's obviously, this is still camera work while they're having Aragorn fight these ringwraiths that are clearly men.
I have a question for Brett because I don't remember what happens in the book. Like what is the actual story here? Because in the movie, he rides with that like Steven Tyler's daughter, Liv Tyler, right? Like what?
Glorfindel.
Okay, yeah.
By the
know
way,
this.
I would say Corey's probably
Chlorophyll.
more of a. I'm actually going to re-listen to the book soon, but Corey's probably listened to it or read it more recently. But yeah, it's Glorfindel. I was like pumped. I was like, sweet, we're going to see Glorfindel. And then I was like, Legolas. It's like the first time in my life I was not pumped to see Legolas show up.
Yeah, because he looks so fucking stupid.
Looks like Hannibal Lecter.
I said, he's not quite as hot as Orlando Bloom, is he, Brittany? She's like, no.
Why don't you just continue on then, Brett? Because after, and I must say, it's a pretty stunning scene when the ringwraiths are on horses. They chase Frodo on horseback through fields, and there's a really like 1-for-1 shot of like two of the horses coming out of a woods and kind of cutting them off that you also see in Peter Jackson's version. But they get to that river, and maybe you know its name, Brett, but this plays out the way you told us it happens in the books and not with Steve Tyler's daughter. So how does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty, I think this, besides the whole Glorfindel thing, I mean, he's the one that shows up. You know, he's one of the most powerful elves in Middle-earth, so he rides across the river, and it's pretty much exactly what happens in the book, I think, in this movie, is they cross the river, and Elrond makes the river rise up and washes them away. So I think that's the last time in the books or the movies that you see the horses.
I think,
which they didn't mention it in the movies, in the actual movies, but in this one they said, you know, those horses died, so they need to kind of go regroup and find other animals. So I actually
get some pterodactyls.
Yeah,
which is a great upgrade for them.
I thought there were a couple scenes, and I'm definitely not a guy who usually catches things where I thought editing could be better. I thought this whole sequence, like a 5-minute sequence, was so weird and could have definitely been edited. Like, well, when they're both staring at each other across the river, that goes on for way too long. When he's like trying to get on the horse and run away from them, that takes way too long. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Beyond that, he doesn't know how to end any scene. Like every scene has like either an ending that goes on way too long, where you see the characters like look at each other affectionately for 5 seconds, or just smash cuts to a totally different location in Middle Earth. It's bizarre.
I feel like another scene we'll get to later is when the orcs and the Rohirrim are like staring at each other for like 8 minutes.
I had no clue what was going on in that scene.
What are they doing? Like,
building tension.
I'm just like, that could be cut down to a minute and a half, you know? I know, Josh, like the one scene where the two riders come out and try to cut them off, I thought that actually looked pretty cool. I just thought there were some really weird things that could have been cut down a couple minutes, and it's like weird slow-mo and...
The long pauses are meant to be for John Bonham's drum fills to the movie that we never got. It's supposed to be a rock opera, guys.
But the end result of all that is just an extreme feeling of awkwardness. Like, this is the most awkward movie I've seen in a long time.
Oh, dude, it could have been called The Lead of the Rings. It would have been so good.
It's not bad.
As we try to crawl along the plot, just to give us some sort of structure to the pod, Frodo gets to Rivendell safe. Elrond heals him, and he just kind of wakes up with Gandalf in his face, much like in the movies. Bilbo doesn't do that thing.
I was waiting for it. Instead, Frodo's going to cold cock him.
But I still think that scene is just so similar to the movie and similar to the writing that I think J.R.R. Tolkien laid out. Like,
Bilbo put on his O-face?
I just think this is one of the places where the writing really shines through, and even if it's crappy animation in the 70s, like, I was still kind of glued to the screen.
I kept waiting for him to go, it's mine! So, I definitely was glued to the screen.
Does he do anything, or does he just, like, look at it in jealousy or something? Does he try to grab for it? I don't know.
Kind of. He gets real close. He gets all up in Frodo's personal space.
He kind of strokes out.
Oh, I'm watching it right now.
Yeah,
he's
hard stroke.
Oh boy.
So ageist tonight, Stevie.
There's a lot of weird movements in this movie, Josh. Like, if you're gonna think about it this way, an actor did those movements, Josh. That's not animated moving. An actor did that movement.
But Stevie, we talk about this all the time. Like, there's a lot of components that go into animation, and people just like kind of blanketly say animation's good or animation's bad. But it's like the set design, it's like the character design, but it's also the acting itself. And even though this is rotoscoped, I feel like the acting in this movie didn't pay off from an animation perspective. You know what I mean? It's
not at all, especially with like the faces that like the hobbits make like throughout half the movie.
So weird.
I mean, it just didn't line up with. I was confused by the direction they were giving. They were given because a lot of the expressions they were making made no sense. And it's like, well, an actor has to do this from the draw over it. And Pap, like, think about it. We're nearly 40 years removed from Snow White and about 38 years removed from Fantasia and Pinocchio, which are our favorite Disney movies. Like, don't you think it'd have been wiser just to make this a full-blown animated movie instead of shooting an actual live-action movie and rotoscoping over it? Because you get scenes like this.
Well, here is the mistake, and I think Brett's also seen that Anchors Away clip with Gene Kelly, where he dances with the little mouse or whatever.
Yeah, I think so.
Dances with Jerry.
Yeah, that is 1944, and this is 1978. This is nearly 34 years later, and that looks better than this. And I think their big mistake was not consistently applying the animation scheme. Like, I think you could have had like real looking people if it was like all of the men were real looking people, and like kind of like a Mary Poppins type deal where you have certain characters who are cartoons, certain characters who are people, and you just stick to it. And I would like kind of help the audience like decipher this, because they don't have the Peter Jackson movie as a point of reference. They're just like going in cold, a lot of them. So yeah, I'm totally with you. What they did is very confusing.
Like, it's just kind of showing how hard animation is, because I feel like
it's brutal.
If Disney would have done this, like, it would have been like way better. Like, it would have looked way better, correct? Like in the 70s wasn't really a great Disney decade. Like, I was looking at the animated films. Like, the best one was probably Robin Hood, and that was in the early 70s. So it was such crude animation. I'm not even talking about the rotoscoping or whatever. But, like, yeah, you mentioned it. Isn't there a famous Mary Poppins scene where it's, like, animation with
penguins?
Yeah, I mean, and it looks, like, way better than this, right? Obviously. That's not Disney, though, is it?
Yeah, it is, with Dick Van Dyke dancing with the penguins. Yeah, totally.
What studio is this?
United Artists.
That made this Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Brett, the reason is... Sorry, Pap, go ahead.
I was going to say, Brett, to your question, Frank Bakshi, this is kind of like his style. I haven't seen a lot of his work, and he didn't do heavy metal, so don't add us. My bad. But, like, from what there's some great, like, collections about him, and, like, Corey Coleman from Double Toasted, like, really, really, really loves him and speaks really highly of him. But this is, like, very consistent to his style. It's very gritty. But go ahead, Stevie, sorry.
I was going to say, Brett, what I keep saying in-betweeners is typically you have your lead artist that creates images of actual poses that the character will make, and these are really refined poses. Mm-hmm. Then they have beginner artists or artists who just got to the company that kind of fill in the spaces in between. And it looks really smooth. And I think the fear with doing this, probably with this animation company, why they rotoscoped it, is if you're not precise, you don't have phenomenal in-betweeners and also great lead artists, you kind of get this rubber hose look where the arms don't move consistently and the body kind of does a swirl. It's really like a rubber hose look to it. So I imagine that's why they rotoscoped it outside of the budget alone.
I'd love to see an example of that.
Look at Cab Calloway and his how they took his dance routines from, I think, the 20s or 30s and put it on a rotoscope.
All right, I'm looking it up. I mean, not now, but I'm going to make a note.
Yep.
I love that animation. That Cab Calloway thing is really cool.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things said on the pod so far, it was Stevie just saying, like, the actors had to actually do all this stuff so they could draw it. And in the background, I had the movie playing, and it was the Council of Elrond, and freaking Elrond is just sitting on top of the table with his, like, balls hanging out.
Looking like fucking Prince Eric.
Looking like a human.
He looked so weird. I thought he was that one kind of missed the mark for me. But
It's like what Pappy said about the character design. Like, you can't really tell the elves between the humans in this. And sometimes you can't tell the difference between Gimli and Boromir.
I know. Brittany thought they were the same person for like a long time.
It just depends how tall they want to make Gimli at any given moment.
Yeah.
Okay, but Gandalf looks fucking sick, guys. they nailed Gandalf.
They did.
I will concede to that.
Okay, so in this movie, the 1978 animated version, Gandalf wants to go through the mines.
Yeah.
In the movies, he wants to go
Opposite.
over the top, which makes a lot more sense to me because he would want to avoid the Balrog. So what happens in the books?
Corey.
I believe it follows the movie pretty well. They try the mountains.
Which movie?
Things. What do you mean? Oh, that's right. The Peter Jackson movie.
Film.
Yeah.
I think you're right, Josh. I feel like it makes more sense that Gandalf would want to stay away from what he believes to be down there, like, at all costs.
And the
So,
hobbits are all like small and easily frozen, kind of.
yeah.
In terms of differences, I do remember that in the animated film, it is Gandalf who opens the door by saying the right word, just like the book. But in the animated movie, I think it's implied that Bill the Pony gets killed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zeus. That was not...
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they make
that's
they
not
make a point. They talk about Bill the Pony a lot in the book, and he makes it back. I'm pretty sure.
I think that Peter Jackson included that like little sentence in the movies as almost like a throwback to this movie too, because
possible.
Bill is not like a big character in Peter Jackson's films, but there's still like Sean Astin being like, "All right, go on, Bill," like out of nowhere.
And what's Aragorn say? Like, he'll find his way back or something like that.
Wink,
He'll figure
wink.
it out.
He'll be good.
He'll find his way into that sea monster's stomach.
But we've all seen this scene before. The octopus or whatever tries to grab the hobbits out. They start walking through the mines, which look pretty freaking cool in this, I think, at least. There's a little bit of ordering that's different from Peter Jackson's films. Like, the tomb isn't necessarily where the fight with the troll is, which isn't necessarily where the book is, which isn't necessarily where the well is. So it piqued my brain just to walk through Moria because it's like, as you guys know, one of my favorite parts of the films.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the really cool things here, Stevie, is I think it's cool. The Balrog in this. Can you describe it?
God.
Okay. First off, let's talk about that cave troll. That was just a husky man. That was no cave troll.
I couldn't tell which one was which until he started
Yeah.
beating everybody
Yeah,
up.
I mean, until he threw that, until he shucked that spear, yeah, that was just a husky man. But the Balrog, now that's a man wearing a lion's head who's
Yes.
probably about 6'5". That's what that was. But the Balrog is okay. So in the books, or in the movie, this dude's like 60 feet tall. Is that not the way in the books? Because this is a 7-foot man.
I don't think he's... I think he's more
Very
like
top-heavy.
14 feet tall, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's not like... I don't think he's massive like in the Peter Jackson's movie. I think
Easily-
he's more of just a little taller, you know...
Easily
Lord of
one
the
of my
Rings book
favorite
right
parts
over
of Peter Jackson's film, but this is strangely, actually, it's way down the line, but I kind of want to get to it now because it kind of ties in. So when Gandalf is in Fanghorn, he's talking about how he fell with the Balrog, and they were showing kind of like just paintings of like what the Balrog looked like and zooming in and out. I would have been totally okay if they did that in the fight with Gandalf, because those paintings and kind of like drawings of, you know, kind of the, I guess you could say, unfinished drawings or finished drawings looked what the Balrog was going to look like, would have looked so cool with a fight with Gandalf.
They did, but I've never been part of an argument where people argue the height of a non-corporeal life form. Like, you can't put a limit on a Balrog. He's made of like fire and flame. He could be 70 feet or 14 feet. He could shape himself like a dude with a lion's mask on.
Yeah.
Dude with a
That
lion's
would be my
mask.
go-to.
I mean, it plays out really similar. He says, "Fly, you fools," as he's falling down. They run out.
No shall, though. There was no shall.
Yeah.
Real disappointing.
I feel like Peter Jackson was really lucky this movie was made to give him some really solid like
Pointers?
sketches. Yeah,
Do's
don't you
and
think?
According to Lord of the Rings wiki, Balrogs are typically twice the height of elves.
It's like 14 feet.
That's not that big.
No, it's
So
not.
he's
But like Josh says, they're fire demons, so they might be able to like expand and I don't know. They're pretty cool.
But it just feels like, I hate to go back to this. When you animate something, the only limit you have is your imagination. They could have drawn the Balrog to be the most interesting thing we've ever seen in an animated movie. Like, think about, like, who's the bad guy in Fantasia? The guy at the end, Stevie?
Chernabog.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Night on Bald
think
Mountain.
like that is fantastic character design. I don't know why they like relied on like the guy who looks like the lion bad guy from Power Rangers, Goldar or something. Like that's what he looks like. I don't know like why limit yourself.
Don't diss Goldar.
I
That's
really
a good
did
point.
think it was kind of cool.
I don't know. There's nothing more breakneck though than losing a very integral character of Gandalf, and then literally 3 seconds later, Frodo going, "All right, what's next?"
Yeah, that was it moved on really quick.
Yeah, that was a real quick mourning period for this movie.
I do have a little disappointing news, like even worse. Durin's Bane is considered slightly larger and taller than a man, so he's even shorter. He's like a short Balrog. So,
He's like a little Balrog.
so like the 7 foot tall Stevie is probably pretty accurate.
Not cool, man.
he's like, yeah, I'm definitely 6'1". Definitely 6'1".
They make a whole point in the Lord of the Rings movies, in the Peter Jackson one, they're devastated. They can't go on. They're about to get in a fight about.
Sake.
And then they're just like, yeah, well, what's the point of even going on? Like he was like more mad than sad in this one, so it was kind of weird. Like that, let's move on. Nobody cares.
I mean,
about
they have
Gandalf.
to. They got a lot of story to tell in this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a
but
long
that's-
movie, but the story is really packed down.
So what they do get to next is Galadriel and her kingdom of everlasting Lothlorien. I thought they really did a good job in this movie of explaining why Frodo, why they have such mixed feelings about him. And basically it's because, like, if he doesn't get rid of the ring, Sauron will eventually amass forces and be big enough to destroy Lothlorien. And if he does destroy the ring, that means that their power from the rings that they have from back ages and ages ago will all slowly fade. So, like, they're screwed if they do, screwed if they don't. And I think that's something I kind of missed in Peter Jackson's versions. There's also, like, some little stuff that if you aren't a buff, you're never going to see. Like, Boromir, there's a couple, like, strange looks he gives with Galadriel, but they really don't delve into that she's like catching him out in his Judas Iscariotness really yet. And then Pappy, the imagination here of the sparks coming out of her ring. That's pretty cool, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I like the rainbow design. I like the whole interior, actually, of Galadriel's place. And actually, frankly, you know, I talked about how that was always my least favorite part of Fellowship. I like that she kind of stays in character, you know what I mean? There's not any like
more
weird.
of like a throwaway statement, like she's making. It's like, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah,
She
it
doesn't go
is.
crazy. She's more or less like, oh yeah, this is what I would do with the ring. Yeah, so as opposed to I'll be darker than the dawn.
Yeah, it's no, totally. Yeah, it's a throwaway statement, but I understood, and maybe it was like Josh, the context with the other rings, but I understood her choice more, and like her relief at like passing the test. That never translated to me in the Peter Jackson film, so this might be something I like a little bit more.
She is clearly like a buxom babe in this movie
Animated
too.
smoke show.
Yeah,
That's Ralph Bakshi. Google Ralph Bakshi right now and go to images, and like at least 5 of the top 10 images will have nipples of women animated. Like,
Nipples with animated women behind them.
try it right now while you're driving in your car, listening to this podcast. Google
Nipples with women around.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Corey was talking about earlier, Boromir kind of has his moment here pretty quickly after this. There's not much in between time. He goes nutso on Frodo, doesn't he?
He goes sicko mode.
It's similar, I guess, to the Peter Jackson movie, to kind of paint the picture for those that haven't seen this one. You know, he approaches Frodo when Frodo's by himself, and he basically says, look, let's go to Gondor. We're going to use this ring against Sauron. I mean, everyone in the movie except Boromir knows that is not even possible, but he's still like sticking to it. He kind of gets more and more tempted, and he goes after Frodo. And just like the Peter Jackson movie, puts on the ring and he kind of like runs out of there. But he doesn't like kick him in the balls or whatever, like in the Peter Jackson one before he leaves. I was kind of looking for that, but hey.
And I've been an apologist kind of for this movie all along, but I mean, Stevie, Pappy, would you guys disagree with me that the Boromir death scene is pretty freaking awesome?
Well, in what way, Josh?
I liked it.
I think, well, first of all, the violence is shocking. Like, he gets shot with arrows in his chest, and it's bloody in this PG movie, and there's force with the arrows. It's like driving him back. The orcs are really scary.
Yeah, but it's all undercut because like while he's getting shot up, there's this shot of Merry and Pippin who look at each other, and they look at each other, and there's literally affection and joy on their face while this is happening. It is terribly acted by the animators. It makes no sense.
Also, I mean, the animation of Boromir dying, yes, Josh, is really cool. But the live action of like orcs that they like bump into is so appalling and hard. Like, it just takes you completely out of the movie. The orcs look ridiculous. They look like, I mean, it's just so men jumping around in pantyhose.
Like I said earlier, I like the orcs in the rotoscope. Like, I think it works for them because they should have some sort of just core difference than humans. But I will also say, like, Pappy, I honestly have no idea what you're talking about with them looking happy. I'm watching back through the scene now. I can't see any smiles.
There's a shot. I'll tell you a timestamp here. Like,
I'm watching too.
Timestamps.
It's right like when they get shot. Like right after like he gets shot, and then maybe Stevie has it for us, but it is very bizarre. Right there, there's a smile right there at 123:42.
Just send it to the group and we'll put it on Instagram.
Yeah,
it's fine.
But 123:42. But anyway, for those who are enjoying this in the audio format, like the rest of us, I don't know. Did you like, Josh, when Boromir used his like dragon voice to like back up the orcs? He just like screams at them, and they tremble away.
The orcs are very fickle in this movie as a whole. They seem to give up quite easily. I think after Boromir dies, the movie, if it wasn't going at a breakneck pace already, it really just flies through what we know as the Two Towers movie here. Let's hit on some high-level notes. First of all, we're introduced to Gollum. And Brett, since you said you liked Gollum so much, why don't you spell him out for us?
Oh my gosh, he's just cracked out. I don't know what else to say. He's just like mumbly. It's hard to even understand. I didn't even understand hardly anything he said. They like take a movie and a half of rich Anthony Serkis acting and like ball it up into like a Play-Doh ball and like just do it in like an 8-minute span. It's just so weird. It's hard to describe. I just thought he was hilarious, but it was like he looked terrible. But like,
well, for one, he looks like Mac from Mac and Me.
He does. He definitely does look like Mac.
Horrifying.
Pap, how would you describe Smeagol for someone who's never seen any of the movies? How would you describe this being?
He looks like a Drogar from Skyrim, like an undead kind of zombie being. Like his skin is brown. First of all, and like his accent.
What are you saying?
Well, no, I'm gonna say like he's not a gray skinned character. He's more like a zombie, like in Skyrim or something. But I don't know. I feel like Sorry, I was trying to find the screenshot of them smiling when you said that. But like I don't know. His accent is a little bit more refined at some points too. Am I wrong there? Like it seems like he would kind of like slip in and out of the Smeagol.
No, I picked up on that.
No time. The precious is heavy. Yes, very heavy. Smeagol knows.
He just kind of like lumbers around.
He looks like a cracked out Night King.
But he's also just animated awkwardly.
Half the time he's talking, he sounds like an upper, like rich person's butler, English butler, and the other half he's like, it's cracked out, looking for, whatever he's looking for. It just was really weird. Like maybe it was supposed to be, the two sides of him, the Smeagol and the Gollum. Maybe that's why they were slipping in and out, but I don't know.
He talks like an English butler, and he talks like Brad Pitt in Snatch. It's two sides of him.
Well, Mikey, you hate long movies, and while this might
is
be
a long one,
while it might be a long movie, they do a really good job of truncating what would be the two towers, like the whole Rohan, Theoden army and Isengard. Did you appreciate that not being so drawn out? I guess.
I mean, it's already. Well, you have to kind of guess what was their intention. Was this going to be a 2 or 3 part movie? Like, what do you guys think?
So they said it was supposed to be 2 parts, and this was named part 1 at first, but they decided not to go with that because the director and like the powers that be thought people wouldn't spend money to see it if it was only, quote, half a movie. Mm-hmm. So they just called it Lord of the Rings. So people were expecting the whole trilogy in this. Audiences were confused, didn't like it that much.
I would be upset too, because the best book is just pretty much, well, I guess we get the best parts, but we don't get any build up to that. We get all the fighting, but I mean, with no context, it's pretty jarring going from Gollum to now we're in a 20-minute battle scene up until the end of the movie. So
there's just so much time spent like with stampedes traveling back and forth, kind of in obstructed, abstract angles. Mm-hmm. I didn't really understand why Pappy with his screenshot sharing.
Yeah, I got it.
Dude. Pappy's gonna die on this hill.
Let it go, Mikey.
So we get a little bit of Ent action, and by a little bit, I mean they're just the basic plot points. There is a such thing called an Ent. It does have Pippin and Merry. I don't think we see Pippin and Merry.
And it looked good.
The Ent looked cool. There should have been way more Ent, way more tree bird.
That was the only actually non-rotoscope thing in this movie.
He looked pretty crazy though, like pretty stupid.
If this whole movie was drawn like that, I'd have been happy.
He definitely stuck out because he looks like a cartoon.
Yes.
Yeah.
But everybody else looks slightly too realistic for this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's not smiling while trees are getting burned to the ground.
Wormtongue looks like Paul Bearer from the old WWF days.
That's a good one.
I guess, Pappy, how does this movie leave us off? Like, can you just describe kind of the awkward in-between spot in the books and movies that we're at when they decide to start the credits?
Yeah, so the last action that I think we see is at Helm's Deep, and King Theoden, is that his name, right?
Yeah.
He's saying, I'm not going to go out like a little bitch, like we're all going to ride out there together, and they all ride out, and they're like I think Mikey or Corey said this, so there's a lot of standing around at the battle scenes. They kind of like all stand around and like get surrounded by orcs, and then Theoden just starts shouting, Gandalf! Gandalf! And that
Pappy,
works.
did you happen to see whose voice that was?
No, I missed it. Who is it?
He's from The Shining. Well, you've always been here, sir.
Oh, no way.
He's Grady, yeah.
Big couple of years for him. That's awesome. But yeah, I mean, Gandalf, the Rohirrim ride in, defeat the orcs, and I might be wrong here, but I think it ends with Gandalf like tossing his sword up in the air like the end of a graduation movie, and it freeze frames on the sword, and it's like, next time on Lord of the Rings, or something like that.
Wish they would have done like a jumping high five, like freeze frame.
It ends with breakfast fist pump in the air.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if we're talking about the very end, it ends with the line, like, nothing is resolved at the end of this except for like a battle along the way. But the last line is something like, The forces of darkness were driven forever from the face of Middle-earth that day. Like, what? Were they really?
Tune in next time.
Depending on whether or not we get funding for the next movie, the forces of darkness were driven out of Middle Earth.
It almost seems
today.
like something that was put in for like the home release because they realized they didn't. I mean, could that have been possible?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, because videos weren't really out in '78. Like, it's say in '86 when VHS came out. They're like, well, we never made a sequel for this, so let's add a voiceover at the end.
He was toying around with making a sequel into the 2000s. Though.
I saw that.
And yet there is a Return of the King movie, right?
Yeah, but the different, it's different people. It was like from like 1980. We should definitely watch that.
I remember seeing that Return of the King VHS a lot when the Lord of the Rings movies were in theaters, just to trick poor grandmas who were going to buy Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, those.
Made a comeback.
Anything to keep the Lord of the Rings podcast feeds popping. Anything. We'll trick old grandmas for views. We don't care.
I got you this Lord of the Rings podcast. That's not the Lord of the Rings podcast I wanted.
That's the main spoilers feed.
Well, just my last question before we get into yes or no's is Anthony Daniels, our king of spoilers.
All hail.
How non of a factor is he in this one?
Well, I didn't recognize him because of the red arm.
Legolas, right?
Yep.
Ah, Legolas. Then do.
I never do Dunadan. May go bannen.
I couldn't believe how bad Legolas was at shooting arrows in this movie.
Or just how bad his face looked.
Yeah, so bad. Has anybody seen Care Bears 2?
No.
I never saw Care Bears 1.
Darkheart? Oh, man. Looks just like Legolas.
It's just like I like the guys on the podcast know because we're all in a group text thread together. I can't even convey to the audience how much it irritates me that fucking Anthony fucking Daniels has been in the most movies that we podcasted. Like, I was so happy like when I started to put together the list of the King of Spoilers, and Letterboxd helped a lot, but I was just so disappointed that for like basically 2 years now he's been the king, and he adds almost nothing to the movies that he's in.
He has more guaranteed picks coming his way too.
Oh no.
We got to get through all the Star Wars.
Do we?
Friends.
If you want to have a Star Wars feed, yeah.
Yeah, those are cheesy jokes.
Well, guys, I think it's that time. Time for yes or no's. Going from east to west.
Oh, no, don't come to me first.
Go west to east.
West to
Yeah.
east.
West to east.
We'll go to west to east, but I'm going to go first. Anyway, even though I'm in Goshen, Indiana, I'm going to go first. So I'm going to give this movie a soft yes in preparation for a lot of no's coming down the pipe. I think that I did have fun as a Lord of the Rings fan watching this. It just piqued my brain just noticing all the little differences. And I think like Brett said about Smeagol, and like we talked a little bit about Sam and the orgasm Blumpkin noises of the ring wraiths. Like, I laughed a lot, and I watched this movie with my brother-in-law and his girlfriend, and we had a good time watching it. I'm gonna give it a yes, and they tried to make it creative, and I think, I don't know, I can't crap on them too much. So I'll at least put out one yes. Pappy Corey, you're up.
Okay. Well, I was actually debating on this for a while after watching it, and I landed on a no. I also had fun with this, Josh, as a Lord of the Rings fan at times, but more than that, I was taken out of it by the awkwardness and the weird silliness of like was mentioned in the spoilers thread. I don't think we talked about it specifically here, but this is the best movie to get screenshots from, because still frames from this movie are so weird, and this movie is very rushed, and I don't know, maybe just maybe it's really bad pacing because they're just trying to condense all this together, but it's just one thing happens, another thing happens, and yeah, I'm gonna give it a no, but it has some merit.
So it's kind of like The Last Jedi.
I never got really to say a yes or no on The Last Jedi officially. So
Safe move from the proprietor of a Star Wars memes account. Last Jedi haters and fans like memes too. I'll give this a no, and I think it's largely because that there is just such a better version of this IP that exists, and it's a very long movie. It's a 2-hour kids movie. I didn't realize that it was one of the longest animated movies ever at the time. I guess that's pretty impressive, but I think ultimately it's kind of a missed opportunity. Like we talked about, or we've talked about on some of the Disney podcasts, that like the early animated works from them back in the 40s are just monumental, insane works of art, and they were so hard to pull off, and there's such miracles that they did happen, and Walt Disney kind of actually does deserve all the accolades that are heaped upon him. I just feel like it would take a bajillion-dollar budget for the 70s and a really dedicated team of like hardcore artists all kind of pulling in the same direction, and a production company pulling in the same direction for them to pull this off, and it just doesn't work. The conflicting styles are annoying. It's awkward, like Corey said. It's silly, like we've said, and like I said, there's a much better version of this IP that exists, and it also like leads me to think that there's a 100% chance that in all of our lifetimes there's going to be a reboot of Lord of the Rings, like probably like an 8-part film series starting with The Hobbit, going through the films, and I just hope that people, like when that happens, that people aren't cynical about it, because there's great adaptations of this material and there's terrible adaptations of this material. Peter Jackson's done both, and it excites me as Lord of the Rings content, but as a film, I'll never want to watch this again. So no for me.
I think Stevie's up. And Stevie, within your yes or no, I think I deserve an explanation. You acted so pumped, so happy, and you've done nothing but crap on this. Come on.
Dude, this movie is an experience. It didn't say it was a good experience. I mean, like, when it's supposed to be an animated movie, I don't know if they ran out of money, but seeing people, like, in a badly lit red soundstage hop around explaining kind of what led up to this movie is hilarious. But I fall in line with Pappy. I mean, I know he said it before, but I think I've said it before in a couple podcasts. Pinocchio, I think, is the greatest animated movie of all time. And, I mean, that movie, what they did is insane. And to think almost 40 years later, they couldn't even come close, like, anywhere near what that movie was, just kind of bothers me, as well as, I mean, the conflicting styles really stick out like a sore thumb, as well as there's no character arcs in this movie whatsoever. None. Everyone is just flat the same the entire time. And I understand there's going to be a part 2, but there's also nothing is resolved in this movie whatsoever. And I think the real shining light of this movie, if I had to pick one, is the tune in next time on Lord of the Rings!
Next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Next time. Yeah, that's like the shining light, as well as the and forces of evil return away forever. Goodbye. I mean, that's the best part of the whole movie, which is the end. I will never watch this movie again. And that comes from someone who is a giant Lord of the Rings fan with Peter Jackson's movies. So, not a hard no. I appreciate what Bakshi tried to do. It just didn't work. And I think, half-assing or quarter-assing 3 things doesn't look good when you could just whole-ass one thing. So, yeah, it's a no.
Some of that review reminded me of how, like, Pappy just crapped on Mushu from Milan because he's not Jiminy Cricket. Like, not everything can be Pinocchio, you guys.
Right.
No, but it's also 40 years removed, and it looks like it came out 50 years before.
It's also one of the scariest cartoons ever.
I think he has some more
scene.
points than he's not Jiminy Cricket. Like, he was saying, like, the usefulness of the whatever.
Thank you, Corey.
He's definitely no Jiminy Cricket. And a man who is a Jiminy Cricket, Brett. I don't know.
Is it Mikey yet?
Oh, yeah, sorry, Mikey. Mushu Mikey.
You know what? I think it's all right visually because the whole Led Zeppelin thing has got me really rethinking what this was intended to be, because as a visual, like music visual, I don't know, just like experience, it would be amazing to listen to like some Led Zeppelin. I think it looks great if there was like some rock music to the backdrop of this. As a movie, describing and going through the story of Lord of the Rings, it's not good. So I'll give it a yes on the looks. I'll say watch it the way God intended and get super high and put the volume on low and then just listen to Led Zeppelin. And I think you'll have a much better time, because the acting in it is terrible. The animation is kind of off, but I think that would be covered up with music pretty well. But it's not a good movie. And they really just press fast forward on like the last third of this story. So we never get the second half, and it's really abrupt ending. But I don't know, man. I honestly think it was totally meant to be like a musical visual experience, because it's just so bad. Like, I don't know. I think they got like halfway done through it. They realized Led Zeppelin was going to let them use the music. And then it's like, shit, we have all of this money invested into all of this animation, this crappy animation that was supposed to just be a music video. And we got to do something with it. I don't know. That's what it feels like to me, honestly. So I'll give it a soft yes.
Mikey, you and I should make a Topher Grace Star Wars Led Zeppelin version of this movie.
I was thinking of that. Like, I already have the video, and I could just download some Led Zeppelin. You could probably edit something pretty interesting and fun to watch in like 10 minutes.
Even if
for 10 minutes,
even if it's just some orgasm faces, like montage.
Yeah, it's just all of Frodo's stupid faces, stupid reaction faces.
All right, we can't forget Brett.
Yeah, so this is going to be a soft no for me. I grew up watching, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the 1977 Hobbit animated film.
Oh, yeah.
I grew up watching that, and I always really liked it. And, like, looking back, I think the animation's a lot cooler, and I thought the story and voice acting was better. And actually, I found out that the people who made that movie was Topcraft, which ended up becoming Studio Ghibli or whatever. So,
future Lord of the Rings spoilers.
Possibly. And they're the one that did the Return of the King, 1981, so I want to watch that as well. I mean, I don't really need to get too in-depth. We pretty much talked about it. It's kind of a mess. I thought some of the dialogue was cool. I thought there were some cool dialogue parts. Like Pappy brought up, I thought that Galadriel scene was cool. And I'm a Galadriel going crazy scene defender, but I still like this kind of aloof, throwaway conversation that she had. It just didn't do it for me. I couldn't wait for it to be over. I actually said to Brittany, I said, I can't possibly give this a yes, right? And that's I'm going to stick with that. I mean, I'm glad we watched it. It's been a really fun pod, but I'm going to have to give it a soft no. Sorry, Josh.
Man, well, sorry to you guys for making you watch a film you all hated so much.
Josh, is the best podcast.
I think I know how this movie could be re-edited to where I could give it a yes. So I didn't bring it up, but Gandalf's eyes looked like he was on an insane amount of crack this entire movie. Like, I think if you got Al Pacino to voice Gandalf, it would make this movie incredible, along with Led Zeppelin playing.
Can someone here please do a Pacino impression?
Nah, I can't.
Fly, you fools.
I'm not trying to rob you, Frodo. I'm not trying to rob you. Bilbo, I guess.
Not bad.
All right. Well, y'all ready for trivia?
Yeah.
If you're new to spoilers, we do a trivia at the end of every episode to decide who gets to pick the next movie. We're gonna have 2 stages of this. So the top 2 of you, who are there? 4 of you? 5 of you? 5 of you.
There's one of me.
There's only one Kylo Ren, but there are 5 of you, and after this first round, there will only be 2. So we're going to go all the way back to 1978. And
God.
Pappy, do you have an order for us?
Yeah, I sent it to you almost 2 hours ago. It was Pappy, Stevie, Brett, Mikey, Corey.
Send it to who?
The group thread. But then it was buried under a bunch of Lord of the Rings memes, so maybe you missed that. Pappy, Stevie, Brett, Mikey, Corey.
Okay, so we'll go in that order. I think it's going to be a little advantage to go last here, Corey. But after you choose, or after you hear what the topic is, Corey, you can go first, second, third, fourth, or fifth. Okay, you can choose. So here's the deal: top 100 songs of 1978 pop hits.
God.
When it's your turn, your goal is to name a band and a song. You can get 1 point for each instance the band is listed, and you get, if it's the number one song of the decade, you also get an additional 100 points. So the 100th song of the decade or the year is worth just 1 point. So there's 100 songs, there's fewer bands, but there's kind of a couple ways to get points. And like I said, the top two will move on. So Corey, do you want, what order do you want to go in?
Last, I guess you're right, is the best. Strategically.
Maybe. Okay. So, Pappy, I believe that makes you first.
So I say a band, then the song? Is that the...
in either order.
The Bee Gees?
Okay. So, and I'm not going to tell you if you're right or
okay,
not.
the song I'm going to go with is Staying Alive.
Okay, so Staying Alive is the number 4 song of the decade. That's going to
go.
Be a cool 97 points for you. Also, Pappy, the Bee Gees.
You're actually the Gollum now.
Oh. The Bee Gees are on the list 3 times. That's an additional 3 points for you. You're at 100 points. That's a great first turn. I don't know why Corey didn't go first. Just joking. Brett or Stevie, I think you're up next.
Can I say Bee Gees again?
No. Bee Gees are off of the board.
No, they're not.
But he already said there were 2 more songs. So
You can say another song by them.
Oh, screw it.
But you will not get the 3
you're just gonna
points.
Try to screw me out of a victory again. Kansas.
Right. So.
Oh, I have to name a song now?
Yeah.
Oh, Dust in the Wind.
Dust in the Wind is 39th, so I believe that's 61 points. But Kansas is only on the list once, so 61 plus 1. Brett.
I don't know the name of the song, but I'm going to go with Andy Gibb, who may have had the number 1 song of that decade. I'm going to go with Our Love, Don't Throw It Away, or something like that.
I don't know.
Our Love.
Don't throw it away.
I don't want to use your love. It's called like, it's like, don't throw it all away. I love the love, don't throw it away.
So he has 3 songs on the list, but those are all the points you get, Brett.
3 points?
You get 3 points. There's no song called Our Love.
All right.
Mikey.
I'm really bad at this. Journey? Now I gotta name a song.
I'll spare you. No Journey.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, Mikey. Corey?
Thank you for sparing the embarrassment of not knowing any Journey song.
I was gonna say Zeppelin, but I'm gonna go with Queen. We Are the Champions. If you're gonna say that or Bohemian Rhapsody.
Indeed. That's worth 75 points. Queen is on the list 1 time, so you have 76 points. Oof. Pappy.
So I'm out.
No, there's 2 rounds of this.
Oh, okay.
Pappy.
Then I will go with Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven. I don't know if the timing's right.
I don't think so.
Definitely not.
That's a goose egger, Pap. Stevie.
Wait, there's no Led Zeppelin on the list?
No Zepp.
Oof.
What about Styx?
You're still in the lead, though, Pappy, so. Styx. Styx is on the list.
Let's go with Come Sail Away.
Number 56, which gives you 43 points.
Big round.
Plus 1 for Styx. Brett, you're up. You need a zinger.
Foreigner, Hot Blooded.
Check it and see, Josh.
I'm trying.
That's number 103.
That's number 36. They're only on the list once. We're 75 points, Brett. That finishes you off with 78, which unfortunately falls behind both Pappy and Stevie. Mikey, do you want to throw a wrench into this wheel?
Blue Jean Committee.
Good guess.
Catalina breeze.
I have no idea. It doesn't matter. I'm out.
Corey.
I want to say Pink Floyd, maybe. I don't think the timeline is right. Time by Pink Floyd
is not on the list.
Yeah.
I think that was 73-ish.
Pappy, Stevie, you get to move on. Stevie, you prove
What was
yourself.
the number one song?
The number one song was an Andy Gibb song.
I
It was
knew it.
called Shadow Dancing.
Okay.
Hey, Josh, can you check one for me? This is 78, right?
Yep.
Are John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John? You're the one that I want?
Yep.
Oh.
Number 13. That would have been a huge point.
Man.
The one that I want.
So here's what we're going to do. Stevie, you have the most points after that, and you've been Lord of the Rings for a while. You're a master at this. Pappy, you have to guess first, and Stevie basically gets to say over or under. But
I love
the
it.
question,
So bad.
Oh man.
the question is, number of arrows that kill Boromir in Peter Jackson's movie times the number of arrows that kill him in this movie.
Oh my God.
35.
That's a solid guess.
Do you care to elaborate on your guess? Like how
Literally
many
the first
per-
number that came into my head, 35.
Okay. Stevie, what are you thinking? Walk us through what you're thinking.
I hate this game.
I can't believe I got cheated again.
How'd you get cheated?
How'd you get cheated?
Our Love, Don't Throw It All Away, 1978, number 9 song in the freaking country.
Oh, shit.
I have the number
Really?
9 song being Boogie Oogie Oogie by A Taste of Honey. Love is, in parentheses, thicker than water. Andy Gibb is number 8.
Can we get an over under from Stevie?
Hold on. Sorry about that. Yeah. 35. I think it was 4 that got him in Peters. I'll say under 35.
Stevie, it was 3 that got him in Peters.
Oh, damn it.
It was 7 that got him in this in this one. So that's 21. That's under. That's your movie.
Let's go!
Spoiler man, give us a quick break while Stevie thinks of a movie.
Spoiler Man here. Our email is podcastspoilers@gmail.com. Twitter is @spoilers_pod. Our Instagram is Podcast Spoilers. It's lit.
And we're back. So just in case anyone was wondering, I got that awesome list of 1978 songs that Brett disputed in the break from musicoutfitters.com. So there may be some inaccuracies in there, but that's the list we went with. Stevie, what movie did you come up with?
So, as you guys know, I love mindless martial arts movies, and I feel like we need to make Jean-Claude Van Damme the king of spoilers once and for all. So, I am going to go with...
Got a ways to go.
I'm going to go with a movie that is near and dear to my heart, and that is Jean-Claude Van Damme's Kickboxer.
Yes.
Nice. Hell yeah.
I feel like we already did this movie.
No.
We did. It was called
No.
Bloodsport.
Bloodsport's-
We did
Bloodsport's better,
Bloodsport
but
and Time Cop.
Kickboxer's fun, too.
So, Pappy, if anyone's listening to this on the Lord of the Rings feed, they should switch over to the spoilers feed to listen to Kickboxer, right?
Exactly, yeah. And if you could please give us both ratings. Like I said, the Lord of the Rings feed got more plays like 5 months after we made it than it did when we initially made it. So hopefully it keeps on growing. So wherever you're listening to us, please show us some love for all the effort we put in.
Indeed. And that's it for Spoilers Lord of the Rings today. Thanks you all for joining us. That was Spoilers.
coming in hot, Brett.
That's funny.
It's coming in real hot.
Right, gotta let us work you up to a simmer.
You're getting there. It's 10:03. We're definitely getting there.
Brett, you were the last one.
Brett, you are the last one on.
You're the last one on.
Yet I'm the only one ready to go, apparently.
You're not the only one ready to go.
Brett, you're giving me notes on the rundown after 10 o'clock. How am I supposed to use
Here's
this?
how this show should be, Josh. Why are you not ready? I'm telling you exactly what to
I'm
write
ready.
down.
I am ready.
All right. I'm ready too.
Ready.
I'm ready.
Mikey?
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Aragorn may be the king of men, but Legolas? I mean, Anthony Daniel. Redo.
Is that who he was? I didn't even look.
Are you ready, Mikey?
Look like Hannibal.
Oh, let me stop.
I like the redo, though. Get it right.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
I could be mistaken. They're using a very primitive dialect, but I do believe they think I am some sort of god.
That was Spoilers.